G'day everyone, and welcome back to another Aussie Investing Machine live stream. Thank you so much for joining me once again tonight. Hope your week's been good so far. A couple of things to talk about tonight. I wanted to have a look at the company Medicus, which I made a video on a couple of months ago. Might revisit them and see how they're doing. We've seen some pretty impressive price movement for that company, so be good to get a feeling of what they've been up to in the latest news and announcements. I'll also have a look at how my portfolio is tracking, and then I wanted to talk about coal generally in the global market, what sort of things were discussed at the G7 summit we've just had, and look at one of the biggest investment firms in Australia, or investment companies, which is Washington Soul Patts. See how their share price is reacting to the global coal price movements. So I might start just by sharing my screen. I got a comment here, BC, good evening. Thanks for joining the stream. Always great to have you on the live stream. How is my non-YouTube portfolio going? Good question. It's doing really well. It contained mainly value-orientated stocks. So we're talking Wesfarmers, we're talking James Hardie, we're talking about Commonwealth Bank, and it's performing exceptionally well. The YouTube portfolio, on the other hand, is, it's improving, but it's taking time. Obviously, it does have a bit of a technology focus, so struggling a bit. Speaking of that portfolio, let's have a look at it. So as you can see, highest profit is still the iShares ETF tracker. Goodman Group, which is a traditional value stock, is doing very well. We're up to a 25% gain. Cochlear is having a recovery now that the elective surgeries have reopened, at least in all other states except for Victoria. So another nice 1% gain today. Doing very nicely. The Asian FTSE tracker is doing very well as well at 15%. Polynovo has come back into the black, a great 2% boost today. So really like Polynovo. If you haven't looked into it, please do. I've got a video on them. Beach Energy, which was doing quite well, has sunk a little back up today as we're seeing the oil price start to jump. Pushpay, AGM, I think today or yesterday, bit of negative movement on that, but in terms of their financials, looking really good, so definitely sticking with them. Northern Star still floating around that $11 mark, so hopefully as the gold price continues to increase, that stock will pull up. PointsBet as well, a long way to get back to the $16 mark, but I think it will at some point. And Kogan, not much activity there, probably it is my biggest loser. And that's because of this technology correction we saw earlier in the year. Might just have a look at market index very quickly, just to check our commodity prices. So crude oil is a good one, continues a strong rise. So that's going to help stocks like Woodside Petroleum, which I have in my non-YouTube portfolio. It's going to help stocks like Beach Petroleum, which I have in my YouTube portfolio. Nice 48% return for the year on crude oil. The other one is gold, which we said was related to Northern Star. So a little bit of a dip in the gold price, and that's probably what's driving the Northern Star share price back down under $11. It's tracking okay. I would think that if there's continued talk and price action relating to inflation, we will see gold have more strength. Obviously, it's a hedge against inflation, being a physical asset. Bitcoin's also looking promising. It's one of those safe havens. Some really strong days over the past week. So on that front, I think they're good sort of long-term opportunities. Let's talk about Medicus. So we can see this price movement, which has been incredible. We saw in January a huge lift off the back of some news, and then lately we've had a glorious run from $40 to up to $53 where it is now, which is a very handsome gain. of 25% or so. So what's been driving this? It's important to have a look at the company's announcements. We've seen some research deals and also a great deal here they made with the University of Vermont Health Network, which is a $14 million deal for their software package, Visage Imaging, and Visage 7, which is their imaging platform. Another big deal in the US. Obviously, US growth is very important because it's such a huge market. We're also seeing an on-market share buyback, and if this isn't a sign of strength for a company, I don't know what is. For those of you who don't understand or don't know the idea of share buybacks, this is where a company, instead of issuing, say, a dividend, instead purchases shares back off shareholders, and the effect of this is that essentially they increase the value of every other share on issue that they don't own. They're taking shares out of circulation. Basic supply and demand will tell you that where there is less supply, the price will go up. So huge buyback, 10% of ordinary shares. So just by holding a Pro Medicus share prior to this buyback, it will go up in value, or at least price action tells you that it will. So some really strong signs for Pro Medicus. Would I be buying in at the moment? Well, we can have a look at that. If we have a look at Yahoo, for example, come over to a Yahoo chart, see if we can find Pro Medicus. There it is. And what I'm looking for here is on the weekly interval, which is a nice medium-term interval. We can see the moving average here is at around 36, so we're trading way above our moving average. We know that buying at the moving average, or especially when the stock is climbing through the moving average, is a good point to buy from a technical point of view. Obviously, this video is not financial advice. Please seek the services of a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. I'm just purely reporting on facts and technical information, which is well known. On the MACD, we can also see a huge amount of buying movement. It's certainly not, in my opinion anyway, a good time to be purchasing Pro Medicus at these all-time highs. I'll be looking for a correction. Even if it's minor like this, it's still a better entry point than buying on big green candles. So we also look at the RSI, which is reflects confidence in the market. We can see that, yeah, we're at a pretty high level, not as high as it's been when we hit this peak, but certainly we could be seeing a similar correction like we saw at this blow off top. This vertical price movement we're seeing is usually not sustainable without some kind of correction. So we'd be looking for downward price movement, meet up to the moving average, which is our resistance level, and this dip here is probably uncharacteristic. It was in March 2020, which was the COVID crisis. So if we could see a lift without sinking so low, I think, you know, we could expect to come back down and kiss the moving average and bounce back off. Personally, I think that this is definitely a company that I'd want to take a position in. However, timing is everything. So if you're investing extremely long term, maybe not, but say if you bought at this peak here, which was in August 2019, only recently have you found that previous high in January this year. So you're waiting quite a long time, 2 years. So that's my my take on the Pro Medicus situation at the moment, but super strong company. As I said, I've made a video on them. If you want to understand more about what the company does to make money, please go and check that out. Just come back to the comments, see if we've got any. BC, I agree that PointsBet will come good in due time. You should do a follow-up video on them. Good idea, something I should definitely check out. How do I feel about Bluescope Steel? I know you like construction stocks, that's true. I'd like to get in, but I'm not sure if there's still a decent run left. Yeah, we can take a look. Bluescope Steel, the only news I'm sort of familiar with, if we have a look, Bluescope Steel, coal mine. Yep, so Bluescope Steel is deeply intertwined in the coal market. Obviously, you need coal to fire a smelt, which melts iron ore in order to produce steel. So South 32, you might know, is an ASX listed coal miner. Have a look at those guys. S32 is their ticker. We can see pretty flat price movement with the dip recently. Headquartered in Perth, spun out of BHP. I think if we really dial in, you'll find that they operate coal mines around Australia, but they do aluminium coal, metallurgical coal, which is the coal used for firing iron ore or other metals in order to refine it to produce something like Bluescope has, which is highly refined and processed steel. Bluescope relies on South 32 for some of its thermal coal. So you can see here 78 million tonnes of metallurgical coal, but the risk of this mine expansion was a danger to Sydney's drinking water because of interaction with the groundwater. It may be blocked, and this would be to the detriment of Bluescope Steel. So not to sidetrack too far, but I'd definitely be looking at this story and the approval of South 32's mine expansion. If it gets approved, positive news for Bluescope. If it doesn't, it could be detrimental to the company, because then they'll then have to start importing the metallurgical coal. Now this is a great segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which is the coal situation and how that's affecting things at the moment. We saw at the G20 summit a lot of talk that Australia is not going to cease coal mining, and you might, from a climate perspective, it may seem like a negative, but for the well-being of Australia's economy, it could be a smart move. And whether or not it actually has any impact on climate change is debatable. You can see the coal imports by country. Australia is not a coal importer, certainly not in the top 10 countries to do so. We export a lot more coal than we use, and we have high quality coal under the ground. Particularly thermal coal is worth more than regular black or brown coal because it gets so hot, and the heat allows you to melt metal. So this is from 2019, so it's a little bit outdated, but it's relatively accurate still today, although the position of some of these countries may have shifted. But we can see the percentage of the world's total imported coal: Japan, India, China. Japan, because they don't have much in their own land mass, so they rely on importing, and we know Japan does a huge amount of manufacturing. Toyota, Mitsubishi, Subaru, all of these massive car companies rely on steel in order to produce the bodies and the engines of the car, and this will be ongoing even after the switch to renewables. So you have to ask yourself, how are Toyota going to produce electric vehicles if they don't have access to steel? And in order to gain access to steel, they need coal. In South Korea, you can see as well a huge percentage of coal importation, and we know Hyundai, for example, has a massive steel producing arm. Certainly in construction, which is the sector I work in Australia, we see steel come from companies like One Steel, which operates in Australia, but we'll also see steel members come from Hyundai. So that's I-beams, hot rolled, cold rolled steel come directly from South Korea. And in a lot of cases, some of that steel may have been created using Australian coal in order to fire the smelts. So it's interesting and important to consider the global use of the coal before deeming it, I guess, as bad. Is it possible to smelt metal without coal? It is, but it's extremely energy intensive and it's not particularly viable at the moment with current technology. So that's something to consider. Domable, hey, I read somewhere that competition is increasing in medical imaging software market and this may affect PME. Yeah, be good to know where you read that. I'd certainly be interested in reading that and to look into it further. It would be good to determine what Pro Medicus's moat is like, and that is their barrier to entry of competition or rise of competition. I don't know if they've got patents on certain software or not, but yeah, it would be interesting to see. Matthew, thank you for correcting me there. Spot on, thermal coal is steaming coal, coking coal is metallurgical. So coking is what I'm referring to when it comes to metal. So coking coal also provides feedstock. Yep, so pretty good point there. I've got my terminology mixed up, but yeah, good comment. So that's my take on Pro Medicus and coal at the moment. I just wanted to do a quick stream tonight. I think I might wrap this one up here. If you enjoyed the stream, make sure to tune in next time. We do a live stream every Wednesday, and I'll try and get another video out over the weekend. Thanks so much for joining me again, and I'll see you all next week. Sorry, it's just a short one this week. Got a bit on my plate this week, so hopefully do a longer live stream next week. Thanks all for joining. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And like the video as well. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.